What if we could capture the entire state of the AI industry? The hype, the danger, the money, the whole revolution, just by looking at a single 24-hour period. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to freeze time on one specific day and see what it tells us about where we're all headed.
So, what's the date? October 1st, 2025. I want you to think of this day as a perfect snapshot, right? A single frame that captures this world-changing technology at a massive turning point. It was one of those days where it felt like literally everything was happening all at once. And this quote, it pretty much sums up the entire story. It nails the central theme for everything we're about to cover. You've got this palpable tension. On one side, it's a pedal to the metal race to build bigger, better, faster AI. But on the other side, you have society's first real attempts to get a grip on it, to grab the steering wheel. And that push and pull, that tension between pure acceleration and some form of control, that's the story of this day.
Okay, let's start at the foundation. Because, to really get a handle on AI in 2025, you got to understand something crucial. It's not just about clever code anymore, not by a long shot. We're talking about physical, industrial scale power.
Yeah, that's right. This has become a global arms race for physical stuff, for computer chips, for massive data centers, for the staggering amount of electricity it takes just to turn these things on. This is the new heavy industry.
And what's so fascinating here is that you can see all these different battlefronts opening up at the same time. You've got, for example, an alliance like IBM and AMD teaming up, trying to create a real alternative to NVIDIA's chokehold on the GPU market. Then you've got specialists like Cerebras going in a totally different direction, building these absolutely monstrous wafer-scale chips just for training the biggest models. And then you have a company like SuperX, who realized the bottleneck isn't just the chips, it's the actual buildings they go in. And the amount of money flying around, it's mind-boggling. That number you're seeing, that's not the company's valuation. That's a single funding round for just one of those chip makers, Cerebras. We're talking billions upon billions being poured into just building the physical skeleton for this new intelligence. So, the key here, the real game changer, is speed. Think about it. It used to take, 2 years to build a cutting-edge data center? By the time you finished, the AI models it was designed for could already be ancient history. So what did SuperX do? They turned the entire data center into a product you can order. They slashed that deployment time to under 6 months. And in a race this fast, getting an 18-month head start isn't just a nice little advantage, it's literally everything. All right, so we've got this huge industrial build-out happening. All that hardware, all that power, it costs an insane amount of money, which naturally brings us to the world of finance. And over there, all this raw power is fueling an economic story that is just full of contradictions. The big question on everyone's mind, is this a real sustainable boom, or are we watching a massive bubble that's about to pop? And this slide just lays that conflict out perfectly. On the one hand, you have valuations that are just out of this world. I mean, OpenAI and talks for $500 billion? Wow. But then, on the other hand, you've got really smart, seasoned investors waving some serious red flags. They're pointing to things like vendor financing. Now, what's that? It's basically where NVIDIA, who sells all the chips, turns around and invests billions of dollars right back into their biggest customers. It creates this weird loop where NVIDIA's sales numbers look incredible, partly because they're bankrolling their own clients. And for anyone who was around for the dot-com bust, this looks, well, uncomfortably familiar. And this isn't just some abstract Wall Street theory, right? This stuff has real-world consequences for real people. This quote from Google is a textbook example of what economists call creative destruction. Google isn't just trying to save a buck here. No, they're making a massive strategic shift, pulling people and money away from older projects and just pouring everything they have into winning the AI race. Now, on this exact same day, we actually got a really helpful framework for thinking about all this from Meta's chief marketing officer. They broke it down into 3 parts. First, AI is going to shrink some jobs. No surprise there, right? Efficiency gains mean fewer people needed for certain tasks. Second, it's going to create completely new jobs, things we can barely imagine now, like AI trainer. And third, it's going to democratize stuff. Things that used to be super expensive will become cheap, and that creates a whole new world of jobs for maintaining and supporting those services. So it's not simple. It's this messy, complicated dance of job loss and job creation happening all at once. Okay, so we've looked at the massive industrial scale and the crazy economics. But where does the rubber meet the road? how does any of this actually show up in our day-to-day lives? Well, on this one day, we saw a really clear shift in how AI is being woven into the very fabric of the products we use. Take Google, for instance. They announced this whole new vision, a move away from the smart home to what they're calling the perceptive home. So the idea is no longer just about having devices that do what you tell them. The goal is to have an entire environment that actually understands the context of what's happening inside it. So what does that even mean in practice? Well, the old smart home was purely reactive. Your camera would send you a generic alert, motion detected. Okay, thanks. The new perceptive home, powered by something like Gemini, gives you what's called semantic understanding. That alert now says, the dog just jumped out of its playpen. Huge difference. You could even ask your home, hey, what happened to that vase on the table? And it could pull up the exact clip. It's a massive leap from just being a remote control to having genuine contextual awareness. And we saw this same idea pop up in the world of fitness, too. Peloton announced their big new strategy, and it's basically the same playbook. Use AI to take an expert service, something that's always been really expensive and one-on-one, and turn it into a product for the masses.
So this new system they're rolling out, Peloton IQ, is designed to literally be your AI personal trainer. And it's not just a pre-recorded video anymore. No, it's using a camera to watch you, to give you real-time feedback on your form. It'll count your reps for you, and it can even suggest what weights you should probably be using. It's a genuine attempt to copy the main functions of a human expert and just scale that expertise to millions of people.
All of which brings us to our final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. With all of this incredible power being unleashed so quickly, how on earth do we control it? This day, October 1st, was the day the first real rules of the game started to get written into actual law. With not much happening at the federal level, California stepped in and passed what was, at the time, the biggest piece of AI legislation in the country. And it's basically built on 5 main ideas. 1, transparency. Developers have to show their work on safety. 2, safety reporting, a public system so people can flag critical safety incidents. 3, accountability, with protections for whistleblowers. 4, innovation. They're actually building a public computer cluster to help smaller startups compete. And 5, responsiveness. The law gets reviewed every year to keep up. You could call it a trust but verify approach for these super powerful AI systems. But, and this is the critical question, can we actually regulate a risk that we don't even fully understand? I mean, this new law is great for handling what you might call practical safety concerns. You know, things like algorithmic bias or preventing immediate accidents. But is it even remotely equipped to handle the deeper, more, well, profound risks? The kinds of risks that keep the very people who created this technology up at night. And that leads us right here to this absolutely chilling quote from Geoffrey Hinton. And remember, this is one of the godfathers of AI, one of the people who literally architected this stuff. Just let that sink in for a second. A 10 to 20% chance of human extinction. That's like a 1 in 5 chance, coming from the guy who helped light the fuse. And listen, his fears aren't about the stuff we usually talk about, like biased algorithms. No, he's worried about existential risk, about AI developing its own goals that just don't line up with human survival. He's worried about a total information collapse, where the world is so flooded with AI fakes that it becomes impossible to know what's real. And that's the giant disconnect, isn't it? The new laws are trying to solve today's problems, while the people who built the tech are screaming about tomorrow's potential catastrophes. So there it is, our snapshot of a single, extraordinary day. A day of frantic construction, mind-bending finance, and unbelievable new products, all happening under the shadow of the very first rules. And it leaves us all with one final, crucial question to chew on. In this absolute mad dash to build a more powerful future, how do we make damn sure we're also building a better one?